One of the big reasons behind why we might use a short to long training program with sprinters is that first we want to develop competence in short accelerations. That will get us used to the higher velocities in sprinting that we want to see. Then as you get used to say 20s and 30s, then you lengthen out to 40s, 50s, and so on. As you see your technique and your ability to handle those workouts improve, then you can add distance. And so it's sort of a logical progression. If you can't run a 150 all out because you just aren't really prepared for it from a specific conditioning standpoint, then it doesn't make any sense to go out and do 180s or 200s. You should work at a distance that allows you to put out good quality efforts, really high intensity sprints, and then once you show that you've developed the ability to handle that distance, then we add distance to continue to progress the program. So we might start earlier in the year, we're only doing 20s, 30s, maybe 40s for speed work, and then the 20s and 30s are for acceleration. But as you get used to that, then you can work up to 60s, 70s, 80s. Once you can do 80s very well and you can maintain your speed and you're showing you're not breaking down with your technique, then we bump up to 110s, 120s. Then you zoom all the way out to the end of outdoor. Say you're running the 200, maybe you're all the way up to doing 220s or 250s or something like that, and you're able to run very fast for the whole distance. It doesn't mean that every single workout you go out and do has to be the longest distance that you're capable of handling, but we want to have that idea built into the program that we're progressing from shorter to longer distances as we show that we're able to handle those workouts. So for me, at this point in the year, I think it's reasonable to start doing 120s because I do want to run the 200 this year. I'm not quite ready to run a full 200 at a good pace, so starting with 120s allows me to run pretty fast the whole way. I do start to break down in that last 30-meter zone. So once I see that the last 30 of a 120, I'm able to maintain my speed that I have, say, from 60 to 90. If I can maintain that 60 to 90 all the way from 90 to 120, that'll show me that I'm ready to progress to either 130s, 140s, or 150s. And then over time, I can continue to progress those distances out further. So for today's workout, I had 3x120. The first one was at 90%, the second one at 95%, and the last one was probably 98% or something like that. I used the Freelap E-starter to start me off, so I was getting reaction time included in the times that I ran. I didn't run anything crazy because I am a bit fatigued. I did some sprints yesterday from blocks. I did a couple sprint workouts earlier this week, and then I ran at a meet last Saturday. So altogether, this has been a pretty intense training week, and I'm starting to feel that fatigue catch up with me. But I did want to get one more good quality sprint workout in this week, and so I thought 3 120s is a good way to go. Start out at 90%, make sure that my body's in good shape, that I'm not going to get hurt, ratchet up the velocity a little bit on that second one, and then finish with the fastest rep of the day, shut it down, and then I'll go do a lift at the gym later today. Now, as far as today's workouts focus, what I was really focusing on was getting out fast but relaxed in the first 30, continuing to accelerate to 60 meters, and then once I got to 60 meters, which is the halfway point for a 120, I tried to just let the leg motion happen as relaxed as possible. I don't want to be forcing it in the back half of a 100, the back half of a 200 or a 150. You have to know when you've reached maximal velocity and when you're no longer going to be able to get any faster times in that rep. And that's when you have to sort of relax through the sprint. We need to maintain our technique, maintain our stride frequency, keep putting that foot down, keep our posture in a good place, keep our arms relaxed. All that needs to happen if we want to run our fastest in the 100 or the 200. You can't blast your whole way through a 200 and expect to run your fastest unless you have just the most amazing speed endurance capabilities in the world. It's going to be very hard to run 100% the entire 200. One thing that you can do when you're doing speed endurance workouts is have certain segments where maybe you're going all out, and then other segments where you're just trying to relax through it, maintain your speed, and then you're truly working on speed endurance. It doesn't really do you any good to work really hard at the end of a 120, a 150, or a 200 if that's causing you to slow down. If you're trying too hard and you're getting all tense or you're locking up your shoulders or something like that, it's going to slow you down. You can't take the effort that you bring into a 1 rep max deadlift where you're grinding through it, you have every possible muscle fiber in your body firing. You can't take that same type of intensity, that grinding hard work feeling, and bring it into a long sprint and expect that to work for you. It needs to be somewhat effortless when you're doing long sprints, especially once you've passed the point of reaching your max velocity. So what did I do when I ran that 150? I tried to get out relaxed on the turn, run really fast coming off the turn for that middle 50, and then once I got to that last 50, I just tried to maintain my range of motion in my arms and my legs. I tried to maintain my frequency and not force anything. And just by maintaining that, I was able to save energy, run efficiently, and set a huge personal best. Whereas the last time that I set a personal best in the 150 last year, I ran 16.3, this time I ran 15.94. I had a tailwind behind me, I was working really hard the whole way, I was totally gassed after. Whereas this time, I ran with less effort, it felt a lot easier, but I was able to run a much faster time. And so we want to take that idea, that ability to relax through a sprint, get through the sprint, know when you're reaching max velocity, and then know when you're in a deceleration phase, and try to minimize deceleration as much as possible by staying relaxed in the shoulders, staying relaxed with your leg motion, continue to maintain your frequency, but not work so hard that you start working against yourself and slowing yourself down. So if you guys are doing speed endurance workouts, consider using either ins and outs, where you have segments of 10 to 20 or 30 meter segments where you go fast, easy, or you can have it set up like I did today, where you go quite fast to 60 meters, and then from 60 to 120, you just try to maintain that speed. And if you're using a free lap system, or you're timing yourself with video, you can start to see, okay, I'm able to maintain my speed that I had from 30 to 60, I'm able to maintain that from 60 to 90, but then from 90 to 120, I fall off. And then you can look at your technique, see if there was anything you were doing there, see if it's a technical issue or is it just a fatigue issue. If it's a fatigue issue, then you need to continue to work on that distance until you can master all those splits and keep those 30 meter splits, 20 meter splits, whatever you're measuring, keep those consistent throughout the back half of the run. Once you're able to do that and you're able to replicate 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 120, then you know now it's time where I can bump up the distance and do the same thing. Now say we're going to 150s, now I want to see what is my flying 100 time. How are those 50 meter segments or those 30 meter segments, how am I maintaining my speed through those? And once again, once you've mastered the ability to maintain your speed over that distance, then you can progress the distance further, and that's how you work in a short to long program, progressing your distances, particularly with speed endurance work. In the 150 that I ran this weekend, I was really happy with what I did. I ran 15.94, which was a personal best by 0.38 seconds. So at 31 years old, to see an improvement like that, that's really encouraging. It tells me that as long as I run relaxed and as long as I am in a good mental space when I go into a meet, I should have a good chance at dropping my 200 meter dash significantly. And this will probably also, parlay into running a better 100 as well, because last year I felt like at the end of the 100, I would start to break down and I didn't have much capacity, to the point where if I ran 200s in the same day, say there was a prelim and a final, I would always run slower in the final than I did in the prelim. So that's why this off season I wanted to include, more tempo work, more just general conditioning type of work. Nothing crazy, but go from doing almost none of that to adding in a reasonable amount. And I think it's starting to pay off. It's not that tempo work is going to make us inherent or specifically faster, but it will improve our work capacity, it'll improve our ability to recover between reps, and it'll just generally bring up our ability to handle workload. And if we can then load more specific workouts within the program without getting completely fried, then we're going to have our best chance at improving at our sprints. So for example, last year when I ran this workout, I was using the touchpad, so I wasn't using the e-starter cone, and I was running, I think, 12.99, 12.98. So if you assume a 0.2 reaction time, maybe 0.15, that would put me at what, 13.15 or 13.2. So considering that today I ran into a headwind, I'm fatigued from a heavy week of training as well as a competition last weekend, to be able to come out and run 13.33 with the e-starter, which includes reaction time, I'm pretty happy with that. I wasn't blasting at a true 100% just because you have to know what days you're able to go all out and which days you have to hold back just a little bit. You can still get great speed development, great speed endurance development, good energy system work in when sprinting at 98%. Now, if we're below 92%, say 90%, 85%, that's where it starts to become less relevant to the demands of our event, and you may want to reconsider what you're doing. If you can only run at 85%, that's a day that you need to do tempo work. But if you can run at 95% or 98%, then you're still going to be able to run fast enough to give your body a stimulus that will, tell it you want it to get faster. But you can do it in a relaxed fashion. You can focus a little bit more on technique and maybe get more reps into the workout than if you were to just run at a true all-out 100% effort. Another thing is, last year when I ran those 12.9s in the 120, I had a tailwind, whereas today I had a headwind. So all things considered, I would say I'm probably right where I was last year when I was in my best shape in 120s. I didn't do that many of them, so this year I want to do more. And I think as I continue to do this work, it's all going to contribute to a better 100 meter, a better 200 meter, and it's going to set me up for a better progression. Last year I felt like my progressions were kind of all over the place. My program was a little bit too chaotic, not as well planned as I would like it to be. So this year I have a little bit more planning involved with how I'm setting up my workouts. I'm writing down every single workout that I'm doing. I'm keeping track of how I'm feeling in those workouts. And that's something that I think you guys can really benefit from is, make a training journal. One thing you can do is go on Google and look up blank calendars. Print it out, and each day you do a workout, just write what you did. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to include every single rep, but do how many sprints you did, some of the lifts that you did, maybe how much weight you lifted, and write a little note about how you feel. And then over time, you'll be able to see, okay, when I did this workout or I did this, weekly setup, then I felt pretty good on this day. And over time, you can start to track what's going on in your program. Whereas if you never take note of what you're doing, you don't keep a training journal, it's going to be very hard for you to, assess what types of work benefited you, what maybe didn't benefit you, where your progressions and your training program was successful, where you could have had some improvements. So I think it's really important that as you're doing workouts, you want to make sure you're doing good workouts. Like today, 3x120, that's a good speed endurance workout. But you also need to be taking note of how you're feeling in those workouts, if you have any aches and pains, because say you're doing workouts and all of a sudden your adductor's bothering you, or your Achilles tendon's bothering you. Well, if you have a training journal, you can look back at the last 3 weeks of training and see, oh wow, I increased the height of my depth jumps, or I did a lot more pogos than I was doing, or I did more speed workouts than I was doing before. Or maybe I ramped up my tempo volume very drastically. And then you can start to track, okay, maybe that's why I have this little ache or pain going on. Or if you perform really well, say you go to a meet and you set a personal best, you can look back at those past few weeks and see what you did leading up to that. And that can help give you an idea of what types of training is going to work best for you to set you up for success. So as you go through your time as an athlete, you want to make sure that you're not only doing the good workouts, but also keeping track of what you're doing, so that way you have some form of a record and you can then have a better idea of what works for you, what doesn't, and how you can better prepare yourself in the following year, the following cycle, the following season, whatever it may be. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. It gives you some ideas of how you can incorporate speed endurance training into your program, how you can approach the sessions where you're not just blasting it 100% the whole way. Maybe you're going 100% to a certain point and then you're just trying to maintain. Maybe you're going 100 or 98% to a certain point, relaxing for a little bit, and then trying to finish fast. However you want to set it up is up to you, but those are different variations that you can add into your speed endurance workouts to make sure you're getting the most out of your training so you can run the fastest when it comes time to compete. Thank you guys for watching this video. This is Cody Bidlow with SprintingWorkouts.com and AthleteX, signing off.